I grew up in Nazi-occupied Holland. At the end of the war, I was like 7 years old. So I painted like my childhood memories of the war, what it was like then as a child living under the rule of fascism. I've made paintings of like environmental conflict, the physical world, the technological world in conflict with the natural world. When the 9/11 happened in New York, there was also one of these fleeting moments that only happened within seconds practically, but it changed the whole course of history. It left the cities in ruins, and it became also, to me, a subject which was, had historical importance. So when these things happened here in Portland, I went down there and started documenting.
Black Lives Matter! Black Lives Matter! Black Lives Matter! Black Lives Matter! Black Lives Matter!
When I came here in the mid-60s, it was just the very, very beginning of the civil rights movement. So while I was here over the radio, I heard about enormous riots in Mississippi and places down south and the violence out there. So I just kind of be always aware of it. When these murders happened by the police, the reactions to that were really profound. I haven't lived in this country. I've been sort of paying attention to the world in which I found myself, which is so entirely different than how I grew up, and how conflicted this country is. And so when Portland, which has always been a very peaceful, fairly liberal city, started flipping around and became an extremely violent place, and Trump started paying attention to our town.
Portland is a disaster. It's been a disaster.
And the fact that pickup trucks would drive through Portland all with heavily armed fascists and stuff. It was just so warlike and so much like recalling fascism and Nazis that it just struck like in a really emotional string in my own mind. And our town really practically overnight changed from a really lovely place into, essentially a very violent place. And so all of a sudden, seeing this incredible dramatic change in the city and a change to the worst, I thought, well, those are the kind of things I painted in the past. At night, I would follow these kids who were with their little movie sticks, being right in there. I would run these programs in real time at home here on my iPad, and then if there would be very distinct moments, I would take photographs of them on my cell phone. And so I have a fairly deep record of these events. What was interesting about it, that whole event happened within the span of like 2 blocks. And it involved 2 major buildings. The federal courthouse, and the other building is the Justice Center, the police department, essentially, and local jail. Because of the context of what was going on in it, the whole feeling of these buildings had changed from this elegant, sort of postmodern, really gorgeous, monumental buildings to ominous, implacable, neutral, somewhat imposing places of conflict. There were features to these buildings which made these buildings change and became, barricaded and defended, and they were attacked, and it was like literally war broke out. The first painting I did was a painting of the Justice Center, and I've always liked it as a building too. I thought it was a very beautiful building. And so when this unrest happened, there was like fencing placed around it, military police standing in front of it, defending it and stuff. And so that building actually became, in the beginning, kind of the focus of what was going on there. I ran across an image of like this beautiful young African-American girl just standing and looking at one of these groups of soldiers. And I thought, just by putting that one young woman into it, just being, in a summer clothes, being really extremely vulnerable, standing and facing this group of soldiers, and which then stands there in front of that immense building. I thought that sort of encapsulated all of it was going on there in one distinct kind of image. So that was basically the first painting. Then I started staining that building. The title is also Stain, because I thought there was a stain on the American justice system. There were threats on the courthouse buildings, especially through the anarchists and stuff. There was a federal building, so then the federal army, the federal element in the country became the defensive force there. I started shifting my attention to that building, which is a really complex building to paint. And then there was also a corridor underneath it and just the pure architecture. So I did a painting about it as well, without any figures in it whatsoever, just the building itself. And then one of the paintings takes place also in that corridor where you see actually the police forces just firing tear gas and, you know, the army, the battle. The last one, the last painting, was the one with where you can really see the violence of it, basically. A city like Portland is in perpetual flux and shows a new face every time. And these fleeting moments about which have historic impact and really affect everyone, but they're brief. Those are the kind of things which really interest me about not only living in this country, but also making a record, painting a picture of your time. It's a very tragic what's going on. This division in this country and the shift towards kind of a form of totalitarianism. I hope that things are sort of falling back into some kind of normality, but I sort of doubt it. It's just not over at all.